20 and 25 Europeans. I'm not going to worry about the 31. I wanted to tell you about some of the things I remember, though, as I worked over the years at Lee College. Of course, I can't praise Mr. and Mrs. Rundell enough, and I could have spent all my time talking about them. They used to give a reception at the beginning of the school year. The reception honored new faculty. They invited all faculty and staff. Mrs. Rundell prepared all of the food. They did this at their own expense. The college didn't pay for anything. It was just their way of letting us know they cared for us, and it really got us off to a good start. I remember, too, Mr. Rundell sitting in his office with that big yellow paper. I don't know if you call that ledger paper or not, but he worked out the schedule on that to be sure there were no conflicts. Like if you were going to be an engineer, the calculus and engineering drawing and chemistry didn't conflict. He did that all by himself. Then Alvin Miles checked it to be sure it was right. And we didn't have any schedule conflicts. Now with the computers and all the checking, you should know, we rarely ever had any problems when they checked it. Also, I could have spent the entire time telling you about our outstanding graduates because they are many, and I see some of them here tonight. And when I retire, I'm going to spend some time tracing them down and writing some things about them. And I know I see someone from the AUW here. I'd like to research those people that you've given scholarships to and let you know what they're doing. I thought that would be good. Many of our graduates have been able to enter professional graduate schools after only 2 years at Lee College. In fact, my husband says I'm the only one who chooses her dentist and doctor by the grades they made at Lee College. But my dentist got into dental school after only 2 years at Lee College, and that's really good. And my doctor, too, was an honor graduate of Lee College and medical school, so why not choose the best if you know something about their background? 2 university representatives tell us they're so glad to get our graduates because they have excellent foundations. And I feel that way. When I went to UT, I felt that I could compete on an equal level with other students. And students in more recent times were able to do the same thing. The problems of college students today, both the recent high school graduates as well as the older students, are more complex and they're a lot more difficult to resolve. I don't remember having such difficult problems when I first was at Lee College. Many of the students have very serious financial problems and are having to work more hours and aren't able to take as much in school. Many students are in traumatic family situations that make it more difficult for them to do well in school. Another big difference in the students when I was a freshman at Lee College and now is that so many more older students are returning to college. Last spring, I noticed on the student report, 61% of our students were 22 years old or older. I know most of you here are friends of Lee College, and I want to tell you the last 10 years have been pretty rough. But over the years, I've worked with many fine students, and there are many outstanding faculty members at Lee College. Students come back and visit us and tell us how much they appreciate what our faculty has done for them. Many times they don't appreciate the faculty until they get away and they compare them to others or they find out what kind of background they have. I couldn't begin to name all of our master teachers. We were talking about Lynn O'Hagan, Mr. Rundell, and Charles Bonner. There's some on our staff now who are just as good, but I wouldn't attempt to name them because I'm afraid I would leave somebody out. With our fine new leadership, I know that in the future it's going to be possible for us to continue to offer programs that are going to enrich the lives of our students. Thank you.
Well, I next panelist is Sue Jones, who is also a student, and she'll tell us about her 21 years that she was in administration.
There's one nice thing about being last on a program. People are ready for it to be over with, I think, and so what little you say is appreciated. And I have really, I've really put mine together as I've heard these other people speak. I found it interesting when a couple of days ago I began to try to formulate what I was going to share tonight. And I was amazed at my memory. I didn't realize it was failing as fast as it is. And I would begin to recall some things, and as I would try to put some details with them, it just wasn't fitting together. I couldn't support what I was thinking about with very much information. And as I was thinking, though, I came across in my mind a story that Ms. Rundell told me years ago. Now, when I went to work at Lee College in 1964, my office was in the library, and Ms. Rundell was employed in the library at that time, and so we took coffee breaks together. And she told me at one time, if I remember correctly, and this part of it is not that important, but it was in earlier years of her marriage, and I believe they lived in an apartment. But she had prepared dinner for some people, and she had made a molded Jell-O salad. Now, you remember what I'm fixing to tell? Okay. Well, when she got ready to serve it and she took it out of the refrigerator, she could not get it to release from the mold. So she took it to the sink. And I guess she put some water on it or something to help it in the melting process. And when she did, that salad just let go and jumped out of the mold, and it started down the drain with her just grabbing at it and trying to hold on to Jell-O. When I got to thinking about these things that I was trying to remember, it was trying to grasp Jell-O. I just couldn't hold on to it, even though I could think of some basic things. I just, as we were running through the history tonight, and I just sat here mesmerized by Mr. Rundell, by his memory, his input into the college, and knowing the long years that he served the institution so faithfully in such quality leadership. And I don't care how old Lee College becomes, that will never fade from the importance of the institution. And I appreciate him very, very much, even to the point that he was the one that recommended that I be employed. So I'm appreciative of that. I had been employed at the Baytown Sun for about 13 years. I came to Baytown in '51. And the reason I came here was to go to Lee College. I was raised in Bryan and had been out of high school about 3 or 4 years, and came down here to live with my aunt and go to Lee College. And so I came in May of '51 and took my first class in summer school of June of that year. And I want you to know that Florence Neal was almost the cause of my ruin. I took algebra in the summer after not having had algebra for a number of years, and with Florence, and Florence is an excellent teacher. I do not know yet what happened in that class. I did pass, but barely. But that was real shock to my system. But that was my first endeavor with Lee College when I came here. And I took 1 or 2 other courses, and then I just forsook my pursuit of an education and worked at the Sun for 13 years, and then decided at the age of 33 that I was going to go to college. And resigned that full-time job I had there and went part-time. And then very soon there was a part-time position that opened at Lee College that was Director of Public Information. And because of my experience with the Sun, then I was able to qualify for what was needed at that time. I think of all the years I spent at Lee College, the most exciting of them all, of the whole 21 years, were those first few years after separation. The college had a strong, strong, strong foundation. And what it needed was to become its own entity. And I appreciate what Mr. Rundell said, is that was one of his objectives. And it was the last of those things that he intended and was reaching for. And I remember when it happened. And it was, Gertrude and I recalled the other day about we spent some time, I can just see right now, sitting on the floor in her house while we were getting our strategy together to fight for separation. Because there were some people that just did not see it as the thing to do. But I think in retrospect, everybody sees that it was a good thing for both the public school and for Lee College to be separated. During those years, right in there in 65 and 66 and 67, we had some bond issues. We won the first one, Mr. Rundell, without any problem. Just went through. I remember that we had our own, even then had our own print shop, Lucky Thompson, some of you will remember, and the print shop was in the faculty lounge where it presently is, and we printed our own materials, and that, I think it was a 1965 bond issue relative to the technical vocational buildings, and the people were supportive of it. And then we had another one for some other phases, and it failed, and we came back in a time with the third one and won it. We worked with citizens committees. Probably some of you may have served on some of those committees when we were in the process of trying to get bond issues passed. Because things happened fairly fast and quickly in the period of time, we were having all kind of open houses and special occasions. One that I do remember was that after we had added the wing to the social science building and enlarged the area of the cafeteria, Dr. Strahan was president at that time. I do not recall the occasion. That was some of that jello that I couldn't hold on to. But it was one of the open houses, or I think that we were commemorating at that time. But Lee College gave the first honorary associate degrees that it gave. And one of them, if I remember correctly, was to Charles Jones. Is that correct? And Dorothy was not the other one to have been to the lieutenant governor or whoever was supposed to come speak. Who was that? Ben Barnes. And Ben was supposed to speak, and he was coming by way of helicopter. And some weather development, I think it was, prevented him from coming. And so at the last minute, we had to shift. I don't know who spoke. Dr. Strahan may have ended up speaking. But we had 2 honorary degrees. Now, that was an interesting experience to have just 2 degrees printed and framed. But that's the first time that that had ever been done in the history of Lee College. And then Mr. Rundell and Sam both referred to Dr. Vito. When he retired, I think it was on the occasion of his retirement, we honored him at Lee College with a special function. I think we employed Leonard's and came out and we had a special barbecue. And the college gave Dr. Vito a saddle. You remember that? He liked horses, and so that was our way of expressing to him our appreciation. Sam mentioned the Moody Center in Rundell Hall and Ms. Northern. I will never forget how to spell Ms. Northern's name, because on the program, and I think it was my fault, I'll take the blame for it, but when we printed her name on the program, it was spelled Northern, just like Northern. And here was this gracious woman on our campus who was responsible for this grant that we got to renovate the old library wing, and had misspelled her name on the program, but in her graciousness, she was very kind and forgiving about it. Then Sam mentioned about Maud Moeller, and she was responsible for giving the college about 6 acres of land out on the I-10 property, and because of her contribution, well, the regent sought to name a building after her, and Maud Moeller Hall was named in her honor. And that was another special occasion. There's a plaque on the wall there, and I recall the occasion of that ceremony and the unveiling of the plaque. You know, one interesting thing, when we separated from the public schools, and we separated, I think almost immediately, we separated the maintenance function fairly soon after the separation. We stayed with them for a while with the business function, and then are still a part of the public school tax assessing process. But when we, as a college, separated and we took on our own maintenance function, we were given by the public schools, as best I remember, a broken down dump truck and 2 or 3 shovels. And that's how we began the maintenance function. And if you go and look now at the facilities that the college has and all the equipment, you can truly see that it's indicative of the progress that has been made of the institution in many ways. Another thing that still lingers, and we can blame, this is one of the things we can blame Sam for. If you ever walk in Moody Center on the lower floor, if you're any taller than about 5.5 feet, you've got problems. The ceiling's very low on the lower floor. Well, of course, that building was not really designed to be a 2-story wing, and when the renovation was made and the upper floor was put in, and on the lower floor they had to allow some space in there for conduit and for air conditioning, vent works, and etc. So the lower floor is what suffered, so that the top bananas up there could have full length on the ceiling. So if ever you're in that area and you have noticed that your head about is touching the top of the ceiling, that's one of Sam's problems that he left us at the institution. And then he mentioned the stanchions. Is Dr. Blevins here? I have not met her. Where are you?
She's going to come up.
There she is. All right. Dr. Blevins, I want to tell you something. Yeah, that's the top banana that the ceiling's made for there in Moody Center. But another problem that she has inherited is the problem of the stanchions. I tell you, ever since the stanchions have been there, it has never ceased to be some project of the student body to get them covered, to keep the rain off of them when they go from one building to the other. And I just tell you that that will reach your desk at some time or another. It has never failed, and that's another one of the things that you left Lee College, Sam, when you got off the board. Lee College is an institution for which this community can be very, very proud. It's like any person, it's like any group, anytime anything lives to be any length of age, there's always going to be some problems, there's always going to be growing pains, but there are always the good things about it. And Lee College has gone through those growth periods. Separation was a problem. The concept of the board, whether it was to be appointed or to whether it was to be elected, was a problem. There are just many things that emerged over the years. But what has really happened through all those, as we have persevered and as we have overcome, it has strengthened the institution. And it has resulted in growth and solidity in many, many areas. And I feel like that we have weathered the storm over the years, and this institution is certainly a credit to this community, and the community should be very, very proud of it. I'm proud that I was there for 21 years. About the first 9 years that I was there, I worked very closely with the Board of Regents, involved in everything that they were involved with. They were exciting years in those early years, and working with Dr. Strahan and his method of operation was interesting, and I enjoyed working under his supervision during those years. That there was a lot of transition going on. And then the latter 12 years, I guess it was, I was involved in in the development of the continuing education program, and those were good years and fun years, and I enjoyed them. But I think the most exciting years were those cluster of years when the college really began to change, when it began to be its own person, if I can use that term, and it really began from the foundation that had been laid to take on a different personality and to begin to develop in many areas that it had not had a chance to do so before because of the way that its governing had been set up. So I want you tonight, those of you that are employed at Lee College, to feel proud of the institution. I'm glad I worked there for 21 years. I'm glad Lee College is in this community. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm glad I'm not there anymore. I left because I wanted to pursue another career, and I'm just as happy as I can possibly be and enjoy it. But I recognize the quality of Lee College and what it means and what it has meant to many, many of us, and even people who don't know anything about it, who've never been to it, who care less about it, have benefited from that institution being in this community. It is something that has added a depth. It has offered many things to many people. And I'm glad that Lee College is a part of Baytown, and even to the point that I'm very pleased that I was a part of that institution for 21 years.
Thank you, Sue. And I think Lee College can be very proud of all four of our panelists, and we thank you for coming. We are delighted that Lee College's new president, Dr. Vivian Blevins, is here, and I would love for her to come up and let all of you meet her if you haven't had the chance.
I'm really pleased to be here tonight, and as I sit here and share this with you, I feel a real warmth, a real connection with Lee College. I'm so glad I came. We have problems, I know that, but I am really glad I came. Thank you.
This is the time when we ask people from the audience, anybody who wants to come up and add some of their reminiscences, to do so. One person I know I would like to call on is Dorothy Ammons. Dorothy was I think I have this correct, she was the secretary for each president except the present one. And I'd love to have Dorothy tell us about it.
Other than that, she was my secretary long before she was president. Secretary.
I didn't know I was going to have to do that. Well, I had 25 years at Lee College, and most all of them were wonderful years. We did have a few shaky years during that time, of course. But one of the strangest things that Dean Rundell ever did, I had worked in the registrar's office for 2 years, minding my own business one summer when he called me in his office, and I went in shaking, wondering what I had done. And he says, Dorothy, I want you to be my secretary. And I thought this poor man had absolutely flipped. He had taught me freshman and sophomore English at Lee College, and I thought, gee, I'll put this in Ripley's, believe it or not. But we did have 6 good years together, didn't we, Dean Rundell? And I did go on to, well, I saw a lot of changes during that time. When I was working for Dean Rundell, most of you faculty don't know, but back then, we had no telephones. There was not even a telephone on my desk when I was his secretary for 2 years. And in the registrar's office, on the one big desk, we had a little bell like they use in hotels. 1 little ring was for me, 2 little rings was for Ms. Lurch. And this went on for a good while, but we finally got some phones. So I have seen a lot of changes, and really good changes. It's true, I have not worked for Dr. Blevins, and I'm going to come over and work one day. But it has been, it was wonderful 25 years, and I'm very appreciative of Dean Rundell and every president that I worked for. I learned something from all of them. And I thank all of you for my years at Lee College.
Would anyone else like to come up? Mr. Armstrong, would you like to come say something? No?
I'm really a late comer. I wasn't there so very long, like the rest of these.
You were mentioned by Mr. Rundell. Would anybody else like to come and add some reminiscence? I didn't know teachers were bashful. Well, it's been a wonderful program. It really has. And I'll go ahead and close it so we can all visit a little. I do want to tell you that the Bay Area Heritage Society has the new book out on Baytown history, and they are selling it, but they have some at our circulation desk. So if you're interested, you can pick that up while you're here. Thank you for coming. I hope you'll all come back in October 21st when we'll look at the school administration.
Time